Legendary teachers in Thailand. The Bangkok News, Khao Sod, Global News, and even international papers often run stories about suicide in Thailand and/or mysterious deaths of foreigners in Thailand. The balcony did it. Foreigner deaths have long been subject to speculation here in the land of smiles and suicide, but the newspapers only report what happened after the fall or push or jump. When I was training with a big language school, Wall Street in central Ceylon, we heard a thump and shattering of glass. A farang like us had just crashed through the atrium of the tower we were sitting in. Why does it happen so often? Well, it's entirely speculative, but it could be that some people bring their troubles with them to Thailand. They try to drown those sorrows in KY jelly and booze, but their troubles learn to swim. There was a guy who was last seen dressed only in a towel, chasing two hookers across Sukhumvit Road down near Phrom Pong. A close friend of mine lived in a rat-infested whore's nest at the top of Soi 22, above a 7-Eleven. The same guy, the one chasing the hookers who had stolen his last 10,000 baht, walked into Adrian's apartment, climbed to the top floor, and jumped straight through the 7-Eleven awning. He lost a leg, but lived. He seems like the classic case of a guy who first enjoys all the attention he gets from Thai hookers, only to realize it's all fake, and with the last hope of love and intimacy sinking like the tropical sun, ends it all. It's pretty grim, but not all farang meltdowns end with suicide. Far from it. And today I want to tell you about meltdowns who work as teachers and become a legendary figure like Wild Bill Hickok, Oliver Reed, Errol Flynn. A lot of us learn the rules of professionalism, like not smoking weed before meetings, only with a little trouble along the way. But some come to Thailand with little experience or regard for etiquette, and not only fall foul of Thai conservatism. Some senior Thais will even complain about the wearer of a mauve shirt on a yellow day. It was me. But these individuals will spiral so deeply into meltdown that they create epic events along the way. But some go way past that. They don't just struggle, they spiral. And when they go like a slinky on cocaine. Legendary teachers in Thailand. Let's start with the Texan. The first thing one noticed was his gargantuan girth, then his gargantuan mouth. There was a very sweet ladyboy teacher at the school. One day in the staff room, basically a cupboard, he was asked, by me, what would you do if you dated someone and found out they were a ladyboy? He went berserk, shouting,
I'd kill her with my bare hands.
In the back of the building, there was a concrete stairwell, and he grabbed a 2-meter tall metal wardrobe and launched it down the stairs. Crash, bang, still shouting.
In Texas, we don't put up with them ladyboys.
That was the end of his career. And seeing as he was already at the bottom rung of teaching jobs, there wasn't really anywhere left to go but the eponymous balcony. Adrian was different. A lovely guy who trained hard to compete in Muay Thai, but he was the proverbial dark horse. He didn't say much about the girls, but confessed that when drunk he lost his inhibitions. So much so that he told me he was drinking with us in Soy Cowboy, but by 2 a.m. he found himself giving cunnilingus to a massage girl around the corner. Legend. Zero education did not stop Jamie from Lancashire getting a job as the head teacher of an English school in a shack next to the pool at Bangkapi Mall. Oh no. Jamie had first arrived in Thailand, Pattaya, when he was 16 years old with his parents. At the end of the holiday, he refused to leave, and incredibly, his parents left without him. In short time, he fell in love with a hooker and married her, and also had a baby before his 17th birthday. He was taken for all the money and pride he had over the next 6 years, but managed to stay alive despite the frequent beatings he got from doormen when he could not pay his bill, which seemed a common event. Jamie lived at Ram Kanpang Road, which is the elephant's graveyard of desperate teachers. They can be seen in their environment, sitting on the door of a 7-Eleven or searching for pennies to buy water from the street vending machines. Jamie had no qualifications whatever and could not spell even basic words, but got away with it with a little help working in a low-down language school. I asked him what happened when they asked for his BA certificate. Jamie said, they called the university to check. So what happened? I said. I gave them a phony phone number, and when they couldn't get an answer, he told them the university had burned down. One day, when I was going to work on the Klongboat at about 4 p.m, I saw Jamie with a new teacher waiting at the dock. He was pissed up. When he tried to land the boat, he fell into the canal and had to be saved by the boatman. He carried on to school, soaking wet and pissed as a judge. The place I met Jamie was redolent with unqualified Aussies and Yanks, as well as a Brit or two desperate to stay in the kingdom. The unprofessional buffoonery is not confined to any one area. Wander into Billboard a Go-Go on a Saturday night, and as well as topless dancers in a bubble bath, you will likely see 3 or 4 members of the United Nations Anti-Sex Trafficking Department pissed as monkeys. And then there was James. He worked at the British Council. He was one of those guys who got angry at the world when he was drunk. At a company Christmas party, he'd call the head of Thailand operations mate and tried to teach how he was doing things wrong, putting his arm around his shoulder like he was his best friend. Then, when the boss tried to leave, James called him a cunt. And then one morning, he came into the Siam Square building early. He had been drinking all night. There was no one around. He found an empty classroom and stretched out across a few chairs. He fell asleep. When they found him, he was covered in sick. The room stank. Students were due in. That was the end of his career. Oh, they are not all drunks. Some are champion bullshitters. Marcus, the American, liked to tell stories as well as terrify new students. One of his favourites was that he could control dogs, like Crocodile Dundee, but American. He told us, "Dogs recognise me. They feel my power, which is why they would never bite me." A week or two later, his Thai girlfriend asked him to help move captive dogs when the floodwater of 2012 was likely to drown them. The next day, Marcus appeared at work with a bandage on his arm after being bitten. Forgetting the story he had already told everyone twice, he went round telling how he'd been bitten to anyone who would listen. That was just a taste of his imaginary persona. On my first day, he was assigned to show me a basic encounter between teacher and student. She was a little late, and he became agitated, saying, "If I was late, my sensei would whip my hands with a bamboo." His illusion was that he was a martial artist, a common opening line for idiots like him. The girl arrived, a very basic learner, and quite nervous. The class was simple shopping, using cards with brands as a springboard into basic language. Louis Vuitton, Apple, Chanel, Gucci, Mercedes. She could repeat them all until she saw BMW. Marcus wanted her to say the entire name. Bavarian Motor Works, in English. It was clearly beyond her to even understand what he meant. She got more nervous and he got angrier, until he shoved the card into her face and shouted, "It's a fucking acronym!" loud enough for everyone outside the cubicle to hear. But back to the drunks. There are so many here in Thailand, and they exhibit their problems in a range of ways. From looking dishevelled, smelling of booze, telling lies, and eating nasty street food like chicken gizzards or unknown meat burned out of something unrecognisable. It happens because it takes a while to adjust from the 24/7 party we probably all experience when we arrive here to the working week. Of course, a lot of drunks cause everyone else to work more because they are often sick. One such fellow had some amazing stories too. He was well-spoken and a lovely guy, but he became infamous among his colleagues. He only had 2 shirts. They were very garish check numbers, but also had huge balloon-like sleeves. Because my arms were big when I was a cage fighter.
Wait!
No irony. He was in his 50s and very fat. He was often calling in sick, which meant his classes had to be done by other teachers, which is never going to endear anyone to others. He called in once and shared the tasteful story about his apparent illness, going so far as to say, "The diarrhea is running down my legs as we speak." One day he sent a couple of strange texts, first saying, "My girlfriend has run away to Essen with all my furniture, so I can't come to work." About 5 minutes later came text number 2, "I'm going to Essen to bring back my fridge." It was clearly an attractive fridge, or maybe it was chocked full of vodka, his favourite tipple. Interestingly, it was the vodka he used when he called in and said he was blind. His girlfriend, a new one, had walked him to the BTS, but he couldn't make it despite his desire to get to work. The fantasists, by comparison to the drunks, often don't last long. Here's the story of one I'll call the Prasanmit warrior. This guy was hired to teach business studies. He was a black American. He rented the penthouse in the building with a blue wave on it in Asok, near the Grammy building, within a week of arriving in Thailand for the first time. He did not speak much to me because when he told me he had come out of the army, I asked him what regiment or corps. He mumbled something and changed the subject. A Walt Mitty type often does such things. He told other guys who did not know much about the military that he was Green Beret, Marine, Air Cav, SEAL team, all in 1 year. He did tell me that the first little hooker he took to his apartment said, "I want to live here." About a week later, he told me he was going to marry her. Suddenly, a few days later, he stalked into the staff room, grabbed his gear, and left for good. Fired. Why? He was looking at girls on Thai Friendly in the classroom. When I next taught the same class, I asked them, "How did you all know he was looking at girls?" They said they knew because he asked them all to rate various girls between 1 to 10. These stories are true and funny after the event, even if darkly funny. In the next video, I may walk into very dark jungles of murder and rape in Thailand. Would you feel comfortable with your teenage daughter backpacking across Thailand?